conversation of creating invincible health, let's say, is immunological momentum. It's a good term to think about. Immunological momentum. It's not like tomorrow we're going to have an impenetrable immune system. That's how a lot of people think. They're like, oh, let me do this thing, that thing. Okay, and now I'm fortified. I'm good. I'm protected. It's a progression, as we've referenced before. So you're creating a situation inside yourself where you're momentously moving forward. There's a momentum with your immune system to the point where it becomes so hyper intelligent, so fortified, that literally you don't need to ever think about getting sick ever again under any circumstance. That's where I'm at. That's where I'm at with the whole thing, is I don't get sick for any reason under any circumstance that I've been aware of up to this point. And I've pushed it. I've done sleep deprivation 3 nights in a row, just writing books, just like, how far can I push this? What can I do? I don't recommend that, but you know, being in an environment like this, being in Hawaii, being, you know, in Sedona during the winter, you know, and just being full on with my whole deal, I might get tired. I might get bags under my eyes. I might get, you know, those things, but I don't get sick. I don't get the common cold, right? The common cold. If you're getting the common cold, that means that there's like virtually no immune system present. It's offline. That's a really important idea to just drive forward, because everything comes down to immunology. Your immune system. How protected is your immune system? How intelligent are the white blood cells of your immune system? The macrophages, the T and B cells, the natural killer cells, all the different functions of your immune armada, your immune artillery weapons, if you will. How much are they really functioning? And so when we think of vaccines and antibiotics, this is an interesting thing to me. Now, I've thrown out things here and there, obviously. You guys know where I'm at with it. But let me draw that out a little bit further. I'm not anti-vaccine, just so you know. I'm not. I'm anti-toxin. I'm anti-neurotoxin. Does that make sense? You get that distinction? Vaccines are important. Vaccines have been used for thousands of years. The first syringe was discovered in the 1600s, officially. But now there's new evidence that the syringes may have actually been around for thousands of years. Right? And so this vaccine idea is nothing new. It's actually been around for a long time. It's not new, you know, idea. It's just a way for certain industries to take ownership over certain advancements in health. Like sterilization, for example. But vaccines have been used for a long time. The only difference is we had natural methodology for vaccination. And now, my argument that I put out there, and that a lot of other people much more qualified than me are putting out there, is that we need this technology, but we need to use the right technology. The vaccines that we're using, which is basically like black magic, it's like witchcraft. If you study the ingredients, I think I mentioned that before. It's like Macbeth and the witch's brew, just throwing random things in there. You study the ingredients, it's like, whoa, this is way crazier than that, right? But if you look at the technology that we have available to us and have had available to us, you realize like, oh, wait, what if we just did that, right? What if we just did or experimented with ozone therapy in the presence of an infection? What if we just experimented with vitamin C therapy, intravenous vitamin C therapy?
They do that.
Yes, they do, right? But that's like undercover. This stuff is being done every single day, and people are recovering every single day. But it's not, you're not going to find it on the mass media news outlets. You're not going to find it at your local pharmacy.
You have to do that on your own.
You have to research it on your own, right? And that's why I'm so passionate about putting it out there, just so you know about it. Just so you know that it's an option on the menu board of the universe. You just got to order what you want on the menu board, and it will come to you as needed. So let's also talk about this idea of antibiotics. Now, I've spoken out about this for many years because of my study into the microbiome. If you look at your immune system, 80% of it is dictated by beneficial bacteria. When somebody has candida, that's also known as a dysbiosis. Dysbiosis meaning an imbalance of bacteria, right? Typically you want somewhere about 80 to 20%. 80% beneficial bacteria, the bacteria that help metabolize and digest food, right? And create neurotransmitters like serotonin. Most of your serotonin is produced in your gut by bacteria. So that's an important thing to realize too. And you want like 20% maybe opportunistic bacteria. It's an appropriate ratio. What's happening is we're completely reversed. And what antibiotics do, pharmaceutical grade antibiotics, across the board. Now there's cases where people have a serious infection, like a urinary tract infection or a kidney infection. Antibiotics are critical, so important. But again, same perspective as the vaccines. Do you guys know what the first antibiotic was ever used before pharmaceutical industry came along? The very first antibiotic. Does anyone know?
Human waste?
Not exactly.
Cheese.
Not exactly what I'm referring to.
Maltose?
Silver. Silver. Colloidal silver, specifically. World War I, we didn't have antibiotics the way we know of them yet. So they used colloidal silver. And it knocks out things just like on contact, clears up infections, saves people's lives. So what happened though, is that about that time, the pharmaceutical industry came along and they started to create their version of antibiotics, and they actually outlawed colloidal silver from being marketed as an antibiotic. They were no longer to market it that way. They said that it could only be marketed as a mineral supplement. Interesting, right? So what we're doing is we're returning to old wisdom, right? Ancient, old, brand new, or ancient, new, brand old, whatever. A little phrase there, right? Folk technology, returning to what's natural and normal and what actually has a track record. I wouldn't be speaking the way I do about this stuff if it just had a reasonable track record. If you could show me evidence that this stuff actually works and doesn't wipe out your entire biome, your bacterial environment, your garden, which we know that all conventional antibiotics do. They may save someone's life, and I'll give it respect on that count, but it also wipes out your entire bacterial load and causes immunological collapses 100% of the time. That's shown, right? So what I'm advising is that in a situation like this, we start to understand that vaccines and antibiotics are valid and have their role, but we just need to reverse the application, the tools that we're using. Medicinal mushrooms. Medicinal mushrooms, immunologically, in my opinion, are the most advanced form of immune system nutrition. Your white blood cells have specific receptors that only fit in the certain polysaccharides that come from medicinal mushrooms, like reishi mushroom, chaga mushroom, Trametes versicolor. These very, very studied mushrooms that have been used in adjuncts for chemotherapy, cancer recovery, so on and so forth. They also happen to be natural antibiotics. If you look at antibiotics, where do they all come from?
On the ground.
Tetracycline? Where does this stuff come from?
I had that when I was a kid, and it won't roll the enamel in my teeth. Tetracycline.
Okay.
All my teeth were gray and shriveled.
Wow. Wow.
And I ran a lot of high fevers as a child.
So this stuff, these antibiotics are mushroom derivatives. They're fungi, essentially. What do we know about the medicinal mushrooms? They're antifungal. There's this, you may have heard this if you've been in the natural foods world for a while, the whole pH miracle, get alkaline, you know, and the whole trip on, you know, anti-mushroom brigade. If you have candida, you can't eat mushrooms. You can't do it because they're going to cause candida, they're going to cause fungus overgrowth. Not true. What they're talking about is that if you eat spore-containing mushrooms or mold-containing mushrooms that you buy in the store, then that can create mold and fungus in the body. You guys, so you want to be careful about that. Purchasing like open-aired mushrooms that have been traveling on trucks for God knows how long, that are sitting in your grocery market, right? Get your mushrooms, your portobello mushrooms, your Agaricus bisporus, which is like that button mushroom we all know on the pepperoni pizza, right? Get that from the farmer's market. It's a million times better, and they have a wider diversity of mushrooms anyways, right? Do that. But the medicinal mushrooms are a completely different species. They're genetically different. We just call them mushrooms, but they're a whole different, they're their own subclass of species. They're not plant, they're not animal, but they are closer genetically related to humans than either one of those. Obviously not animals, we are a type of mammal, but they're closer related to us than anything else. Chaga mushroom is like 30% genetically identical to a human being. How interesting is that? Okay, well that must mean that there's something in there for us that responds to us, right? And reishi mushroom is one of the most powerful antifungals. It's a mushroom, right? They're natural antibiotics, but they don't wipe out things. They don't stimulate anything other than normalizing or modulating your immune system. Another question that comes up, what about autoimmune conditions? What happens if I take something that's going to ramp up my immune system? So that's why you don't do, if you have an autoimmune condition, you typically would not do what we call a medicinal herb, like garlic or olive leaf extract, or echinacea, or oregano oil, milk thistle, dandelion leaf. You typically wouldn't do those because they stimulate the immune system, right? They only move it upwards. You want something that helps bring it back into balance. And what we see is a big onset of immunosuppressant medications for people that have autoimmune conditions. Medicinal mushrooms come in because they are immunoadaptogenic. They help your immune system adapt and normalize. They're modulatory. That's the term, immunomodulatory. Right? That's the intelligence that I'm talking about. All the food and all the stuff I'm talking about increases your biological intelligence. Your body is intelligent. Your body knows what to do, but you gotta feed it information. It's like anything, right? If you don't use it, you lose it. Most people aren't using their heart, right? So they lose it, right? So you gotta educate your biology in order to return to your neotenized self, your youthful self. Okay, colloidal silver, already talked about that. Olive leaf extract is amazing if you need to stimulate the immune system. If you have a lower underactive immune system, you have an infection, olive leaf extract is great. Aged garlic extract is amazing, and this would be your replacement to doing straight garlic. Aged garlic extract is a technology that came out. There's a company called Kyolix, and this is a technology that is socially acceptable. It's a little squirt, and it doesn't affect you the same way that straight garlic does. What you gotta know about garlic is that garlic is powerful. It is powerful. Garlic is literally, it contains an enzyme called allinase that stimulates a compound called allicin. And that compound is on par with tetracycline in its power. It's that powerful. So if you're juicing garlic, right, or you're eating tons of garlic, then, you know, it can have a strong effect on you, especially if your body is changing, right? That's why they created aged garlic extract, because it's softer and gentler, but it still has the same beneficial properties. We already mentioned all that. Okay, do we feel complete on this? Do we want to?
Please go into ozone therapy, vitamin C therapy.
Okay, well, real quickly, so the whole thing with ozone therapy is it's kind of like an advanced version of oxygen therapy. Instead of being like O2, it's O3, but it can also be like O4, O5, O6. It just means like the potency of it can be taken up. Now, I do have a disclaimer about ozone therapy, and I've changed it a little bit just by seeing people like completely like clean out. I'm like, whoa, this is powerful. There's actually a book by a guy named Ed McCabe called Flood Your Body with Oxygen. That book like really lays it out. Oxygen therapy, ozone therapy. There's two ways to do ozone. There's intravenously to put ozone straight into your blood and ozonate your blood while it's in your body. That's the most powerful way. That's the way, like literally what it is it just cleans your blood. It cleans your blood up. And then there, you can also ozonate your blood. You can have your blood drawn and then ozonate it and then put it back in. Like centrifuge it, ozonate it, and put it back in that way. Not as powerful, but you know, you can go either way. It's kind of like doing intravenous vitamin C or intravenous glutathione. And it's totally safe. But what you need to know about is if you do it, you need to take breaks from it. Like I know people that just do it over and over and over, and because it is so powerful, it can oxidize you over time. This is the thing to understand. I had a client after one of my lectures a year ago on the Big Island, and she came to me. She had HIV. She had been through the whole circus of like the you know, what you go through, the medical institute. Then she went to naturopaths and holistic doctors, and she just went through the whole thing, right? And then she comes to me and she tells me everything, and she's like, I've been doing ozone therapy like crazy. And I'm like looking at her skin, I'm like, ooh, you need to stop. Like you got to get off that, because it was just too much, right? These things require respect, right?
What did her skin look like?
Just broken. Like her skin was just breaking. You could tell. Like it's just like blemishes, and that picture that I showed you in the front is like that. Like the collagen's breaking up. She's obviously like some kind of dehydration effect. Like it just looked like she was oxidizing, right? And it's like, you got to get off that. Like you're done. You're done with that. We're gonna get you on probiotics. We'll get you on enzymes. We'll get you on the the natural diet and everything. But you got to get off the ozone now, because that's it's too much. But if you do it once and try it, have an experience, then you'll have an experience, if nothing else, and then you'll know what I'm talking about. It's just an option. It's a natural vaccine, basically. Far more effective. It works far more effective than what we're kind of posed with. What is the thing, if we live long enough, that's eventually going to take us out?
Constipation.
Yeah, the very thing that hides in the body, that causes crustaceans, that causes us to crust over, that causes our joints to become very rusty, that rusts us over, that causes arthritis, that causes osteoporosis or influences it, that causes arterial plaque. Another word for arterial plaque is oftentimes calcification. There's different theories on calcification. Some theories, the more the medical model, is more of the opinion that it's simply the hardening of the arteries and the capillaries. So the actual passage is getting hardened and really brittle, right? That is very true, but I have a different perspective that was put out by a book. There was about 40 years of research up to this point, and all of that was put into a book called The Calcium Bomb. That was put out in the 90s, I think. And that was like 30 years of research at that point just put in. And the person that wrote that book was a cardiologist and a heart surgeon. So he came to find out that every time he did a surgery on someone that had a heart attack or heart disease, there would be this white pussy material coming out of their heart. And you can see these videos on YouTube. Like there's a video of it's called like A Diet for All Reasons or something, and you can see like the pus coming out, and they thought that was simply like cholesterol that gets impacted in the heart valves, right, in the aortic valves. now they're finding that 95% of that plaque can oftentimes be calcium, and maybe 0.5% or 1% is actually cholesterol, right? This is a big deal. So what is the #1 selling supplement in health food stores? Does anyone know? Calcium. Calcium supplements. And calcium supplements are basically mined out of ditches in Mexico, and it's just sedimentary material. It's an end product of metabolism that came from prehistoric matter, or it's fossil matter, and it's an end product. So meaning that you can't take that matter and then metabolize it into bone. It doesn't work. The body doesn't know what to do with it. So it's like, okay, what do we do with this? It just stores it away. It can't even get rid of it, because over time it silts up your kidneys. So your renal system's not working. You can't filter it out. You can't urinate the stuff out. And over time it just gets stuck and it sticks around. And what's really interesting about that is that even behind that situation, it turns out that it's even deeper. It's a bacterial infection. Same way Lyme's disease is actually a bacterial infection. But what they find is a biofilm structure encased outside of that, outside of the bacteria. So what they call it, and we can move on to the next slide, what they call it is nanobacteria. Nano-sized bacteria, like the size of a virus. Extremely small, that evades analysis. In fact, you can't find these things because they're covered in calcium structures, like calcium oxalate or calcium carbonate or calcium phosphate, whatever, however you want to think about that. Basically, forms of calcium that accumulate systemically in the body, and those, you will find that these calcium structures will localize themselves in specific areas of the body, right? So for example, right here, this little white material that you see here, this white lines that you see here on the phalanges of the fingers, that kind of thing, those are all calcium. Another term for coronary, another term for examining the coronary artery of the heart, like to check for biomarkers for heart disease. One of those is like homocysteine, which is related to B12. Another is C-reactive protein, which is a biomarker for inflammation. But now what they're starting to label a lot of these scans are coronary calcium scans. That's an indication of someone's prediction for heart disease probability. So you can see that here. So in the fingers, what's going on with your fingers, your joints, your feet? The areas where you get that, like, right? You seen like that, those little protrusions on people's joints? What is that? Those are stony formations, stone formations basically, right? And what happens here is that this area of your body, closer you get to the joints, it becomes non-vascularized. Non-vascularized, good term, means no to low blood flow. What travels in your blood? Oxygen, red blood cells, and white blood cells. So there's no immune support typically to those areas. So it's a great hiding ground for these organisms. And they'll just take calcium. Okay, cool. Heavy metals. Cool. Plastic particulates. Cool. Anything that the body doesn't recognize as organic or bioidentical, right? Biologically useful. And it's just hanging around the body because it hasn't been detoxed out. They'll use that as a bedding ground. They'll create a fortress. And they'll hide behind it. These organisms are very, very intelligent. They're very sophisticated, right? So it requires a sophisticated approach. Simple, yet sophisticated. I have to put out there now, since we're talking about this, we're going to go through a decalcification protocol. One of the things I didn't put up here because I didn't know if you guys would be ready for it or take it or whatever, but it's electronic medicine. Basically using a zapper. A zapper is a very interesting device. It was originally created by this doctor named Dr. Hulda Clark, like in the I think maybe the 60s or 70s. And basically what she did was she took 2 copper electrodes and you would hold them and it would be plugged to an energy generator, and what it does is it creates like an on-off signal, frequency signal, moves very, very quickly, and it puts your body in it's like a sound frequency basically, and it goes on, off, on, off, on, off, on, off, and it basically disrupts the frequency that these organisms are living at. So it's like being in a room with like heavy metal blasting in your ear. Like, they love that. That works good for them. But if you were in that room, you'd probably, like, there'd be a point where you're like, okay, I gotta get out of here. Does that make sense? Sound wave formations. Another way of saying that is like negative charge, alkalinity, whatever, right? It's all similar, right? So it's like on, off, on, off, on, off. And now what they decided to do is advance that technology. Or what they have done is they've advanced that technology into a single device. This guy named Don Croft created it. You can go to a website called, check this, aworldwithoutparasites.com. aworldwithoutparasites.com. Interesting idea, right? And the whole premise is that these devices, these electronic medications, if you will, medical devices, that's what I say when I go on a plane, my medical device. What they do is they shift the frequency of what's going on in your blood chemistry, your body, or your body, let's just say, and the things that are living in there, right? It shakes them up. And so there's a device that you can get now that's just one little device. It has 2 copper pennies on it. Those are the electrodes, and it has a sound board in it already, a circuit board built into it. So you just take it and you place it on a place of your body. If you have like your jaw TMG issues, right there. You have joint issues, muscular issues, whatever, just put it right there, and you don't feel this like vibration necessarily, but if you're really loaded, like you have a really bad issue, there's something living behind the curtains, you may feel like, whoa, like it starts to like, whoa, move around, right? So something to know about, if anything, just to know that this exists. Right here, right here on the shoulder, somewhere, wherever that's called, right here. What is it?
The acromioclavicular joint, or the glenohumerus, where the calcification is.
Okay, got it, right there. Yeah, so that's calcium residue right along that bone. And then right here is crazy. All this like material, it's like stony like formations right there, all over the pelvic region. That's all calcification. And that's like, this is like a serious degenerative condition. Like someone's entire hip is just taken over, right? Really wild stuff. And so it appears that calcification is what will recycle us out at the end of our duration. Even if we do everything right, we have the best diet, we're in an atmosphere that supports our vibrant health and all that. This will be the thing that essentially takes us out once and for all. If you look at the longest living mammals, like great turtles, what else? Bald eagles. What's that?
Blue whales.
Blue whales. Yeah, things like that. The longest living animals, they're finding that they have arthritis. At some point, they develop arthritis. So these nanobacteria essentially are nature's recycling organisms. And if we didn't have them, we would have tons of prehistoric fossil matter on top. We'd be on top of it. We'd be loaded up with it on our Earth, right? So they recycle this stuff out. Now, what's important to understand about this is that you can bypass that to a certain degree. You don't actually have to be silted up with this stuff, right? You can actually de-silt yourself up. You can decalcify yourself, because we all have it to some degree, and you can feel it, right? So we can break that stuff down, and then we can take on a lifestyle that inhibits the growth, the progressive accumulation of these materials in our body. Do you mind hitting the next slide for me?
It's fine.
Yep. Okay, so how do we do that? What do we do? How do we break this stuff up and get it out of us, right? Well, this is basically the most basic way to start applying a decalcification protocol. Again, everything we've talked about is useful for this. Everything we've talked about led us to this point, right? Now we're just getting into the specifics. Enzyme therapy. Enzyme therapy, in my opinion, is one of the most powerful things. One of the most powerful things. And I'm not talking about like 4 digestive enzymes when you have a meal. Like, that's kind of a joke. That's not what enzymes are for. I already explained, I think, like the diversity of enzymes in our first lecture. You have food enzymes that are built into the food. You have metabolic enzymes, which are born enzymes that help us heal what we're born with. And then you also have digestive enzymes, which help us digest certain foods, right? What I'm talking about is high dosages of systemic enzymes, metabolic enzymes, protein-based enzymes, okay? They're called proteolytic enzymes. And what they do is they break down proteinaceous material in the body. Like, I think I mentioned this before too, like what surrounds a tumor or a cancer cell is that protein coating, and they need to break that down in order for the immune system to get a handle on that infection, right? Same thing with biofilm research. What they're finding out in Lyme disease research with biofilms is that certain enzymes break down that biofilm. But what they also found out is antibiotics at a certain stage in Lyme's are useless. If you catch it very early, you have a shot. But at a certain point, antibiotics are actually useless in Lyme's disease because that biofilm has been established. Biofilm, again, is like a structure. It's a structural material. So you actually have to break that thing down and then apply your natural antibiotic protocol. Does that make sense? So that's kind of the same logic here, is that we're stacking a few different strategies together, but there's a strategy to it, like a 1, 2, 3 kind of 1, 2, 3 punch to it. The very first thing is breaking the stuff down. So enzyme therapy, I'm talking about, like, depending on the situation, I'm talking about 15 to 30 enzymes on an empty stomach in the morning. I mean, that's what I do just for fun. People are like, well, 2 questions come up. People are like, well, won't that inhibit my body's ability to produce enzymes? No. No, it will not. There is no evidence of that whatsoever. And I know some of the most established raw foodists in the world, like 20, 30, 40 years. They've been doing enzymes for a long time.
Can you quickly talk about enzyme therapy to break down scar tissue?
Yeah, absolutely. Exact same principle. I mean, the number one recommended thing naturally to break down scar tissue that floats in the blood or accumulates on certain regions is enzymes. I mean, literally, that's what enzymes do. This is a point I keep trying to drive forward to people, is like, this is actually what enzymes are designed in your body to do. They're your healing force. That's what they do. They heal you. But because of the progression of our domesticated lifestyle and our poor eating habits and yada, 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 we have depleted that healing machinery in our body. So our body is just like, if you read the book by Edward Howell, Enzyme Nutrition, then you'll find out he states that every single degenerative condition, regardless of what it is due to a depletion of enzymes. Somebody that is 70 years old has a 30% reduction in their enzyme count. 30%, 30 times less enzymes in their saliva than someone who's 20 or 30. So as they go through the life cycle and they break down and degenerate, their enzymes get exhausted. See what I'm saying? So enzyme supplements are so powerful to help repopulate. I'm actually of the opinion that you can repopulate your body's inherent enzyme production through fasting on enzymes. I just put that out there. That's something that I entertain. It makes sense to me. It feels like that's the right thing to do.
Has it worked for you in practice?
Absolutely. I mean, I've had so much scar tissue Man, I've had the most gnarly scar tissue buildup. I mean, I'm amazed that I can still walk with all the battle scars I've been through, all the injuries and ankle. I've twisted, popped, dislocated my ankle, my hands, my fingers, my two knee surgeries, and just to keep going. And to be able to come back right now at 30 years old and be actually more athletic in a lot of ways, faster, quicker, more explosive, if not just as explosive, than I was at 22. You know what I'm saying? Like, it's like, whoa, okay, so there's a lot of theories that need to be overturned here about this whole aging scenario, right? But you just have to have the right strategy.
What's
So-
the enzyme book called again?
Enzyme Nutrition. It's like the original book on enzymes. Okay,
if I-
MSM. MSM for the bang for your buck. Man, MSM, methyl sulfonylmethane. MSM breaks stuff up better than almost anything. You know, it's on par with enzymes, but it's different. It also it's the material that actually builds your collagen, that builds your connective tissue, that builds your joint capsules and your muscle fibers, and also nerve insulation tissue. A lot of neurological issues are because of sulfur deficiencies and sulfur not being able to build the myelin that coats your nerve fibers. Motor function degeneration, MS, Parkinson's, all that kind of thing. MSM can be very, very powerful for all that. It was powerful for me. I attribute my knee healing a lot to MSM and getting off all the inflammatory stuff. But MSM is a supplemental version of sulfur, basically. It's basically what it is. And you start with about half a tablespoon in a glass of water in the morning. Do that like twice a day. It's also a liver cleanser. It's hormonal. It helps to cleanse out obstructions in the liver that mess with your hormone production, your hormone balance, like estrogen metabolites. It helps to clean that stuff up out of the liver. That's why it's called methyl. Anytime you see methyl, it has to do with methylation. Methylation is part of your liver hormone detoxification system.